Billionaire witnessed one mother splitting a single meal with her children. His subsequent action left everyone in tears. The wind sheared through Central Park trees that evening, blowing the golden leaves about like lost reminiscences. Autumn had come to New York City, sharp and merciless. The streets were less busy than they normally were, and the air carried that sort of cold that seeped under coats and stayed in the bones. Caleb Stone walked quietly down a winding path, his steps quiet on the pavement. He had on a long gray coat, turned-up collar, eyes far away. At 38, he carried the look of one who had constructed everything and lost something more profound. His face was unrecognizable to the public today. Though once ubiquitous in magazines and corporate circles, he preferred isolation to parties, quiet to gatherings. He would frequently visit the park at dusk. It was the only place where his mind did not resonate so loud. No phone, no meetings, just trees, air, and recollections. As he approached the pond, something halted him. Under the soft light of a lamp, Post rested on a woman on a wooden bench. Her blonde locks were pushed up into a disheveled bun, hair falling over a pale, exhausted face. She was in a faded gray sweater that was too large. Her shoulders slumped inward, not from the chill, but from something more. In her hands rested a sandwich already torn into 3 pieces. 2 small children sat close beside her. The older child, a girl dressed in a worn pink dress, sat upright, awake even though thin. She was perhaps 6. Her cheeks were rosy, more from wind than heat. Her name, he would eventually find out, was Laya. She clung to her piece of sandwich as if it were important. Beside her was a youth younger, with golden brown curls and a beloved stuffed bear clamped under his arm, Theo. He sat against the woman's side, quietly chewing on his morsel. The woman, Nancy, put the largest morsel into Laya's hand, then handed the second to Theo. She took nothing for herself. Rather, she sipped from a water bottle and smiled kindly at them. Caleb was transfixed. He did not know why this instant fixed him in space. It was not only the poverty, it was the manner in which she moved, how she gave freely. Something about it hurt. Then Laya leaned into her mother and whispered, "Mommy, if you do not eat, how will you sing for us tonight in the van?" The words ran directly through him. He heard his own daughter's voice again, when she was 5 years old, telling him to sing again before she went to bed. He remembered the softness of her hands in his. The loss struck him all over again. He stood by Nancy, smiled at Laya, and smoothed hair from her daughter's cheek. "I have lots of energy," she whispered, "because I get to hear your voice first." The children laughed quietly. Nancy stood up and stashed what little they had. She tied a thin blanket tighter around Theo and grasped both children's hands. They went slowly in the direction of the edge of the park. Caleb hung back, then trailed at a distance. They passed by shuttered stores and dark windows. NY's steps were small, her back slightly bent into the wind. Laya clung to her hand. Theo was tired, eyes half closed as he shuffled ahead. After several blocks, they turned into a narrow alley behind a closed-down corner store. At the far end of the lot stood an old silver van. Its paint was dull. The back window was cracked, tires deflated. Leaves and vines had collected at its bottom. It hadn't budged in years. Nancy glanced around hastily. Then she knelt and reached under the fender, yanking out a thin strand of wire. Working with delicate hands, she unlocked the rear hatch and pried it up. Inside, Caleb viewed what can never be referred to as a home. A blanket folded, some pillows, some plastic storage container with clothes, and a couple of books. There was no light, no warmth, but just enough room for the 3 of them to huddle together and make it through the night. She escorted Laya and Theo inside. Nancy came after and quietly shut the hatch. The lot was quiet, the city humming somewhere in the distance. Then out of the quiet came something soft singing. NY's voice, low and consistent, purred a lullaby. La's little laugh drifted faintly across the metal shell. Theo whispered something incoherent in reply. Then quiet again, the kind that only comes when children are finally asleep. On the other side of the lot, Caleb remained standing. The chill tugged at his coat. The wind swirled around him. But he did not move. His gaze remained fixed on the van, on the delicate light of love that flickered even there in the darkness. And for the first time in years, Caleb experienced something move in the very back of him. Not pity, but a sense of connection, something true. Morning drew slowly on, spreading a dull golden light over the cracked rear window of the van. Dust hung in the air as soft light seeped into the small space. Nancy sat up gently, brushing sleep from her eyes. The blanket had slipped in the night, and she pulled it back over Theo's little shoulders. She leaned against cold metal for a moment, taking a deep breath before the day started. She reached into a worn cardboard box and folded the few things they had: a towel, a small pile of clothes, a nearly empty package of wipes. She ensured nothing poked out from under the tarp or blanket. If a passerby came, the van had to appear abandoned. Nancy opened the hatch just a crack to peer out at the lot. Too early, nobody in sight. She quietly led the children outside. She filled the cup with water from a plastic bottle that was half full, gave the soft, bristled toothbrushes, presents from a community outreach van, to Laya and Theo. They scribbled alongside the van in the cold air, tiptoeing to catch their images in the hubcap of a car parked nearby. Laya was laughing at the toothpaste mustache on Theo, and for a fleeting instant it seemed almost ordinary. Nancy observed them, pride and melancholy swirling together in her eyes. Years before, she had donned a freshly ironed white chef's jacket with the words, Nancy, embroidered by her own name, Nancy Ross, under the logo of Lamion Blouin, one of New York's finest restaurants. She had not only worked there, she flourished. Applauded for her imagination and sense of taste, she soon advanced. Magazines heralded her a star in the making. She was interviewed on local TV, appeared at food festivals, celebrated as a woman who broke through the bar, fine dining. In those pictures, she had seemed so different. Hair pulled back neatly, eyes bright, smiling with quiet confidence. That woman had thought she was going somewhere. Then the accident. She had worked late after service, assisting in the cleaning as always. On the way home, a vehicle ran a red light. The collision smashed the driver's side, and her right wrist and fingers, the tools she had spent her life training. There were surgeries, therapy, but her hold never came back. Knife skills were unreliable. Her accuracy was lost. In a matter of weeks, the executive chef walked her out with kindness, telling her they needed to release her. Her husband, a professional musician who worked marginally well, hung on for 2 more months before leaving. No farewell, only silence. With 2 children, no paychecks, no insurance, and hands that could no longer perform the work she loved, Nancy slid through the system. There were shelters, couch surfing, kitchen jobs for a day or 2 washing dishes or chopping vegetables. She labored without complaining, even as hope gradually faded. Finally, when all options disappeared, she spotted an abandoned van behind a closed convenience store. Hidden behind a fence, it provided something no one else had: room and quiet. She cleaned it, lined the broken windows, turned the back into a tiny nest using borrowed blankets and a foam cushion she had yanked out of a dumpster. This was home now. Even then, Nancy never begged. She would not. She sought employment, not pity. She instructed Laya and Theo to be rude to no one, to say thank you, to remain proud even when they had nothing. When we behave with dignity, she whispered to them every evening, the world may give a few back. That morning, while the children were finishing up their brushing, Nancy observed something. A folded paper bag was sitting next to the back door of the van. She approached slowly. There were 3 apples, 2 cartons of milk, a wrapped sandwich, and a little package of granola bars. All of them fresh, none of them opened. No note, no signature, no indication of who had abandoned it. She glanced about. The lot was unoccupied. A wind rustled the leaves, but there was no one present. She stood there for an instant, not knowing what to think. Then a tiny smile brushed her lips. It wasn't broad or radiant, but it was genuine. She clutched the bag against her chest and glanced at her children. Then she looked at the skyline over the fence, where sunlight brushed the rooftops of the buildings. Someone had noticed them, and someone had taken the trouble to offer without being asked, without wanting anything in return. Nancy shut the van door softly, as if she was afraid the moment would shatter if she hurried. For the first time in weeks, her heart felt less burdened. Hope, delicate and secret, came back. The penthouse was quiet. Warm light shone from the sconces on the walls, casting golden light across shiny marble floors, but the room felt chilly, empty in feeling if not in appearance. It was the kind of silence money could not buy. Caleb stood by the window, looking out at Manhattan's sparkling skyline. The city hummed beneath him, but his mind was elsewhere. Still in the park by the pond, he could see her in clear sight. The manner in which she regarded her children, the gentleness of her smile, the solidity of her silence. She had begged not at all, asked for sympathy not at all. She had given what she had with quietness, completeness, without question. He remembered this picture. He turned away from the window and went to his desk. With a push of a button, the intercom activated life. "Victor," he said. "Yes, sir," was the response. "I want you to locate a person." A woman, blonde, early 30s, 2 children. "I've seen her in Central Park last night." "Surveillance?" "No, just her account." Hours later, there was a file on his desk. Caleb opened it, preparing himself. Nancy Ross, 30, former sous chef at Les Membles. His breath caught. She had worked under Henry Lacroix, the same chef who had mentored him years before in Paris in a short, fiery foray into the culinary world. Henry had once spoken of a brilliant young woman in New York, with an unfashionable flair for taste and compassion. Caleb had never met her until now. She had assisted prepare the white truffle velvet soup, one of Henry's most renowned dishes. His late wife had loved it. He recalled sharing it with her one snowy evening years ago, when they still believed in forever. He read on. Severe wrist injury in a car accident. Lost job, no insurance. Husband left shortly after. 2 children, 6 and 4, no fixed abode, possibly living in a broken-down car. Caleb looked at the letters. They seemed surreal. Nancy, who had been so planned for greatness in the kitchen, was now homeless, living with 2 children in a broken-down van. And still, she continued to smile, to comfort, to sing. She had taken 1 sandwich and divided it into 3, and made it seem like a banquet. He spoke softly out loud. A woman like her shouldn't living this way. But he knew better than to advance money. He had seen the pride in her shoulders, the calm in her voice. She would not take pity. She needed purpose, a way forward. And then the idea began quietly enough, and then with certainty. A ghost kitchen. It would be ideal. No walk in business, no public exposure, just food cooked in silence and put into the world. He would fund it in secret. No names, no connections to him. He would spread the word through back channels. No resumes required. Just cook something real, something honest. And if she appeared, if she made that step, he would be waiting. That evening he was at the window once more. The skyline sparkled, alive and infinite. But tonight, Caleb was not wondering about stock rates or executive suites. He was dwelling on a van, a tune, a kid's voice, and a recipe nobody had prepared in years. His own reflection looked back at him. A man the world thought possessed everything. But tonight he was waiting patiently for someone else's due. Over. And as he stood there, a distant smile surfaced, gentle, optimistic, genuine. The kitchen was small and unfinished, nested within a leased commercial property that still had the scent of sawdust and paint. It had no sign, no front, no patrons, only a few stoves, prep stations, and unopened boxes. It was a ghost kitchen in all ways, meant to operate silently in the background. Nancy entered, grasping Laya and Theo's hands firmly. Her face was suspicious, her shoulders tight under the old gray sweater. She scanned the new faces, the clang of pots, the early prep urgency. Her heart pounded, but she did not waver. A fellow worker from a previous job had phoned her the night before, an old line cook from those early years, who had heard the new kitchen was hiring. No resume required, no interviews, just go and cook from the heart. He recalled her during better times, and thought she still possessed something special. She had arrived without hesitation. Without babysitter and savings, Nancy brought her kids along. She placed a blanket and a small box of crayons in the back corner. The children sat quietly, accustomed to adjustment, too far mature for her years. Nancy unfolded a frayed cloth bundle. Inside were her equipment, a chipped, handled paring knife, a worn wooden spoon, a slightly twisted whisk. Her chef's jacket no longer fit, so she wore a simple black t-shirt, sleeves rolled up to display a small scar on her wrist. Other cooks observed her silently. She paid no attention to the looks as she selected her ingredients. No flashy choices, only cream, garlic, fresh mushrooms, and a handful of thyme sprigs. Honest, earthy flavors. Some of the younger cooks whispered, glancing at her battered equipment and slow, unhurried gestures. But as she cooked, the commotion around her started to recede. Nancy did not hurry. She went through the motions with the elegance of someone well acquainted with the culinary language. As she stirred the sauce slowly, she allowed it thicken, eliciting flavor from simplicity. The kitchen filled with the scent of autumn and warmth. She neatly plated the pasta in a white bowl, cleaned the rim, and set it on the tasting counter. A man moved forward. Nobody knew who he was. He had on a dark blue shirt, sleeves rolled up to his forearms, and a serene face. He claimed to be from quality control. No name was provided. It was Caleb. He reached for the fork and ate a bite. The flavor took him back in time. It was creamy but not heavy, savory with a hint of sweetness. The mushrooms had depth. The thyme was tender. It was comfort and memory in a bowl. He raised his head. Nancy's eyes met his. She didn't blink. He ate another bite, then set the fork down quietly. His eyes sparkled. He nodded once and turned away. Nancy remained immobile. She couldn't understand his silence. Several of the cooks looked back and forth between her and the bowl, questioning. She cleared her area quietly, wrapped her utensils, and readied to go. When she walked by the counter, she saw the man had left the bowl half full. She hesitated. Something about that made her stall. Then she took a clean takeout container, scooped the leftover pasta into it with a spoon, and returned it to the counter. She wrote a message on a napkin. "Hope you are not too busy to eat later." She had no idea who he actually was. No idea that he had trailed behind her from a park. No idea this was his kitchen. But the little gesture, sharing food with someone who had not requested it, was the same silent love she shared with her children the previous night, and Caleb recognized. The following days fell into a subtle rhythm. Nancy came to the kitchen early each day with Laya and Theo accompanying her. The kids had become a familiar presence, quietly huddled in their corner with crayons, story books. Some staff, previously skeptical, now brought little presents, juice cartons, a toy car. The kitchen seemed different, more warm. Nancy labored more than anyone. She never asked for attention, but her presence touched every corner of the kitchen. She assisted others without being asked, instructed younger cooks how to fix their cuts, jumped in when someone fell behind. She moved like a person who belonged, not for praise but love. She prepared food out of memory. She did not measure, hardly referred to a recipe. Rather, she trusted instinct and feeling. Each meal told a story, a feeling, a memory. Caleb came frequently, still in the disguise of quality control. To the others, he was a silent man with thoughtful eyes and a peaceful disposition. No one knew he owned the establishment, but Nancy had begun to regard him as something more, though she did not yet know what. One afternoon, Caleb asked her to have lunch with him in a quiet corner, out of the way of the kitchen commotion. She hesitated, not knowing if it was proper, but his voice was kindly. She agreed. They shared a plain meal, pasta soup. Caleb spoke softly, explaining about a friend who had lost his wife and daughter in a crash. He told her the man had been trained as a chef once, but never cooked again after the accident. Nancy listened intently, her gaze unwavering, her hands placed neatly in her lap. She did not sympathize or advise. She merely sat silently watching, and that made more of an impact on Caleb than any words ever could. That evening, Nancy experienced an odd pressure on her chest. The tale lingered. She understood sorrow, understood the way it crept silently into your side and took up residence. She longed to answer, not in words, but in the only language she could rely on. The next morning, she got there early and scoured the back refrigerator. Some forgotten ingredients caught her attention. Daikon radish, celery, onion, cream. She cooked. She cooked slowly, deliberately. The soup she prepared was plain. White radish, cooked until it was soft, with a whisper of ginger and sweet onion. No strong seasoning, merely warmth and memory. When finished, she put a single bowl on the tasting counter. No indication, no words, and waited. Caleb arrived just past noon. He saw the bowl. No one took it. He picked up the spoon and tasted. He was frozen, the instant it hit his lips. Everything else was gone. He was not in the kitchen anymore. It was Christmas Eve once more. His daughter's laughter resounded through the house. His wife, humming at the stove, turned a smile as she spooned out this very soup. He swallowed hard, shut his eyes to the tears, and put back spoon down. Nancy observed from the other side of the room, wondering if she had made a mistake. She inched forward. Caleb turned to her, his voice so low it barely made an audible sound. "Where did you learn that?" Nancy provided a soft smile. "Chef Henry instructed me years ago. He said it was for those whose hearts had frozen through too much pain. A healing soup." Caleb nodded, not able to speak. Something within him had awakened, not shattered, opened. The knock came too soon. Nancy had only stepped into the kitchen, her hair still wet from a quick wash at the public bathroom. Laya and Theo sat silently in their corner, half asleep, crayons on the floor. Two women stood in the doorway, dark jackets, badges, Child Protective Services. Someone had called in a complaint that Nancy and her children were in unsafe conditions. Her heart fell. They wanted to talk to her in private where she resided, how long she'd been living in the van, if the kids were in school, visiting a physician. Nancy replied truthfully, attempting to remain calm. She described her work, her attempts, her intentions. None of that mattered. She was homeless. No legal residence, no constant income, no coverage. In spite of all she had tried to do, they considered her unfit. There would be a hearing. There would be an assessment. The children would be put in foster care temporarily. Once they were gone, Nancy remained standing in the alley, outside of the kitchen. Her mind ran around in circles. She could still hear Laya's voice that morning, inquiring if they could make pancakes on Sunday. The magnitude of it all was overwhelming. Later, Caleb appeared at the kitchen and at once saw the stillness. Nancy was not there, her apron folded, tools in their proper places. He located her outside, sitting by the van, head in hands. "They are going to take them," she whispered. "I have done everything I can, and it is still not enough." Caleb went down beside her. "Let me help." She shook her head. "I cannot take your money. I am not providing money. I am providing something better." 2 days later, they were in a courtroom in Lower Manhattan. Nancy was dressed in her best clothes, hands shaking as she kept Laya and Theo tight. The room was sterile, the fluorescent lights humming overhead. The judge scanned the file. Notes, living conditions, concerns. Then Caleb rose. "Your Honor, I would like to speak." He moved forward. The CPS workers edged away. Nancy glared at him in surprise. "I share a home with Nancy and the kids. I am able to offer steady housing, education, and medical care. But beyond all that, I have seen the love, the stability, and the values she provides them each and every day." The judge pushed his glasses up. "And your relationship to Miss Ross?" Caleb breathed slowly. "She is my wife." There was a quiet that swept over the room. Nancy looked on, her face in shock, her mouth slightly ajar, but Caleb did not glance at her. "We've kept our relationship private," he went on, "but we are devoted. I am here to provide for her and the children." The judge regarded them. "Is that true, Miss Ross?" Nancy hesitated. Caleb reached out and very gently took hold of her hand. His eyes spoke everything. "Trust me." She nodded. "Yes." The judge sat back, then nodded. "I will require papers, but as of yet, there is no need to continue with divorce. The children will stay with their mother." Nancy almost fainted with relief. On the courthouse steps outside, She was able to find her voice at last. "Why did you do this?" Caleb regarded her with soft sincerity. "Because the world doesn't need any less mothers like you and me. I need you more than I ever knew." He smiled afterwards, gentle and certain. "You don't require me to rescue you, but perhaps I can walk beside you as you rescue yourself." Nancy looked at him, not knowing if she ought to laugh or cry. So she did the next best thing and reached for his hand, holding it first this time. The sun was only were just starting to get in place when Caleb invited Nancy to accompany him. Laia and Theo were with her, always, one small hand in each of hers, as they strolled along a still street outside the bustling core of Manhattan. Nancy glanced about with curiosity. They walked past old shops and recently remodeled cafes until Caleb stopped in front of one building. The huge front window was still dust-shrouded. Inside, she saw covered furniture, spotless counters, and unopened crates. It seemed like an empty space waiting for something or someone. Caleb moved forward and rubbed a corner of the glass with his sleeve. Then he gestured for her to see. Nancy bent forward. Carved in minute lettering on the window were the words, "Nancy's table where recipes remember." She went numb. It took her a moment to comprehend what she was seeing. Her name on a restaurant window. Caleb pulled a silver key from his pocket and held it out to her, eyes calm. "This is yours," he said. She reached out cautiously, still dazed. Her fingers wrapped around the key as though it would vanish. "I do not understand," she whispered. Caleb smiled. "I am the someone who tried your mushroom pasta that initial day. I trailed after you from the park. I noticed you rip a sandwich apart into thirds and give it all away." NY's eyes opened wide. "I am Caleb Stone." The name struck her like a wave. She blinked, dumbfounded. "You are the Caleb Stone." He nodded. "I did not want you to know initially. I wanted to know who you were, not how you handled my name. But all that I saw, the way you labor, the way you love, the way you battle, it all only reaffirmed what I did know." Nancy stepped back, reeling. "You opened the ghost kitchen. You made the tasting job a reality. You came to court." He nodded again. "Yes, but not for your rescue. I witnessed something uncommon in you. Something the world had forgotten to treasure." She stood there with the key, not knowing whether to be angry, thank him, or just be dazed. "Do not look up to me," he said softly. "Look up to yourself, because I do." He rummaged through the bag he had brought and took out a soft package wrapped in cloth. Inside were new chef's knives, honed and inscribed with her initials, the first instruments of her new life. She had her mouth to talk, but before she could, Laia pulled on her sleeve. "Mommy, can we go inside?" Nancy smiled at her daughter, then leaned over to Caleb. "Do we really? Can we really open this?" Caleb nodded. "Everything is in order. Permits, equipment, even the first week of supplies. All you have to do is cook." Nancy gazed at the building once more, her name glowing in the warm light of the streetlight. She had imagined something like it years ago, before the accident, before the van, before it all disintegrated. Now, without planning, without hoping, it was being given back to her, not as a gift, but as acknowledgement. Just then Laia released her mother's hand and darted towards Caleb. Her pretty pink dress blew in the wind. She wrapped her arms around his waist and looked up at him with big, sincere eyes. "Are you our real daddy now?" Caleb looked down at her, taken aback. Nancy opened her mouth, not knowing what to say, but then noticed the expression on his face. He knelt down to Laia's level and smoothed a strand of hair behind her ear. "If you will have me, I would love to be." Laia beamed and hugged him tighter. Nancy felt tears rising in her eyes, but they were no longer from fear or pain. They were from something she had nearly forgotten. Hope. A full year had gone by, but the walls of NY's table still bore the same warmth from its first day. The restaurant had not only survived, it had thrived. Others traveled from across the city for a place at one of the handful of tiny tables. They came not for extravagance, but for ease. They came for dishes that tasted like recollections. They came because they heard rumors of a chef who cooked from the heart in every morsel. Nancy navigated through the kitchen with ease and grace. Her wrist had strengthened, but more significantly, her spirit had. She smiled more frequently. Her laugh was effortless. She still dressed plainly, still pulled her blonde hair back in that same sloppy bun, but there was a sparkle in her eyes that had not previously existed. That evening, after the final dish was washed, and the staff was home, she lingered in the kitchen. The room was filled with the subtle smell of soup, similar to that she had prepared on that day, so many years ago. She turned around to find Caleb leaning against the counter. He smiled and waved toward a small table in one corner. It was set for two, with one candle burning softly between two plates. Nancy blinked in astonishment. "What is this?" He approached her, took her hand, and led her to the chair. "Just a quiet dinner," he said. "Just us." They dined slowly, laughing, discussing the small things, discussing Laya's new interest in dinosaurs, discussing Theo's intransigent refusal to touch anything green, about how the restaurant was already full up through the holidays. Then Caleb stood. He put his hand into his coat pocket and brought out a small box. Nancy stared at him, bewildered, until he knelt to one knee. Right there in the middle of the kitchen, on the same tile floor, where she had once prepared soup with shaking hands and a shattering heart, Caleb gazed up at her, eyes full of something deep and firm. "Nancy," he said, "you have done something no one else ever could. You healed me with your cooking, your strength, your love. You brought warmth back into my life, a meal, a smile at a time." He opened the box. There was a plain ring, classy and eternal. "I want to spend the rest of my life with you. I want to bring up Leia and Theo as my children. I want to be your husband, your partner, your home. Will you marry me?" NY's hand rushed to her mouth. Tears welled over in her eyes, spilling before she could halt them. She couldn't speak, so she nodded once, twice, then again and again as she collapsed into his arms, laughing through her tears. "Yes," she whispered into his shoulder. "Yes." Later in the evening, the kitchen lights were lower, the candle still burning softly. The sound of small feet was heard down the hallway. Laya came in first, still in her favorite pink dress, hair bouncing behind her. Theo followed, dragging his little red toy truck behind him. They sat at the kitchen table, Caleb serving them bowls of warm soup. Nancy joined them, pulling her chair close, brushing a kiss to each of their foreheads. The four of them ate together, the sounds of spoons tapping bowls and laughter filling the room. Outside, the city moved on as always. But inside that kitchen, something rare had taken hold. A home, a family, and a love that had smoldered quietly all along, now at last brought to a gentle, lovely boil. Thank you for watching this soul-stirring story. If NY's strength and Caleb's unassuming love touched your heart, there are lots more stories waiting to be told. At Soul-Stirring Stories, we believe in the power of love, second chances, and acts of kindness in the most unexpected places. If this video touched your heart, please subscribe and hit the hype button to help our channel. Your support enables us to keep sharing emotional, real-life stories that heal and inspire. Stay kind, stay hopeful, and remember, even the smallest act of compassion can transform a life. This is Soul-Stirring Stories, where each and every story has a heart.